In the second year after my death, my 80-year-old husband married his first love. To celebrate his remarriage, he threw a lavish banquet and even unfurled a banner that read, "After 60 years of separation, a perfect match reunites to continue their former bond. Everyone cheers for their love, yet forgets me, the original wife who endured hardships with him and bore his children. I regret it, regret wasting my youth on this man." Opening my eyes again, I was back to the day my aunt introduced him to me. I've decided to let go of each other and not spend a long life with him anymore. But he panicked. My husband and I met through my aunt, and shortly after we got to know each other, we agreed to get married. My husband's dream was to start a school. To support him, I collected cardboard and scrap in my spare time, earning funds bit by bit. After his school was built and his work became busy, I quit my job to have children and manage the household for him. We maintained our marriage for 60 years, and he was always good to me, until I passed away last year at the age of 84 due to illness. I always believed he loved me, yet in the year after my passing, he married his first love from back in the day. The wedding we couldn't afford to hold when we got married due to poverty. He made up for it all with his first love. Not only that, but on the day he married her, he even put up a banner in the neighborhood, making a grand spectacle. Parted for 60 years like swallows. A perfect match rekindles their former bond. They are a loving couple. A perfect match. So what am I? What chilled me even more was that my son had also forgotten me, happily welcoming his stepmother into the house. It seems that in their hearts, the 60 years of my existence were all a mistake, and my passing is merely an opportunity for them to correct that error. Everywhere were festive decorations, and I stood numbly in the midst of the crowd, watching this great joy that was both related to me and yet had nothing to do with me. Looking at my husband's joyful face, I suddenly realized that I have been with him for 60 years. And this is an expression he never showed even when I gave birth to our son. Perhaps marrying him was truly a mistake. Recalling all the hardships and exhaustion I endured for him back then, I too have come to regret it. If I could start over, I wouldn't want to marry him again. Just as I was thinking this, a black hole suddenly appeared beside me, and a force of suction pulled my soul into it. When I opened my eyes again, I saw my aunt who had passed away long ago. I stared at her in disbelief. Could it be that I had actually arrived in the underworld? Before I could speak, my aunt warmly came forward to greet me. "Oh my, why are you only coming now? The other person has been waiting for a long time." I was dragged to my aunt's house in a daze, and when I saw the person in front of me, I felt as if struck by lightning. Isn't this exactly what my husband looked like when he was young? Come on, Boyuan. This is my niece Lin Xiuxiu, whom I told you about. She's an accountant at our canned food factory. She graduated from high school, so you two should have something to talk about. My aunt introduced me to Fang Boyuan, and also gave me a brief introduction about him. Xiuxiu, this is Fang Boyuan, who came back from university in Beijing to contribute to his hometown. He has a bright future, my aunt said cheerfully, hinting that I should quickly seize the opportunity. In my previous life, I also received my aunt's hint, feeling that he was good in every aspect, and was willing to get to know him again. But I never expected that my aunt only knew he had studied at a university in Beijing. Yet she didn't know the reason he didn't stay in Beijing was because his first love's father was a professor at Peking University, who looked down on him as a young and inexperienced guy and forced his daughter to break up with him. It was precisely because of the shock of his first love that Fang Boyuan was determined to make something to make his first love's father regret it. That's why he agreed to a blind date as Su. And as he returned and married me very quickly. Shortly after marrying me, he returned with the money his first love's father had given him to start a school. He was indeed, as others said, intelligent, persistent, and a person capable of achieving great things. He started by founding a small school, and later, in response to the development of the times, he expanded his career to become the chairman of an education group. Everyone envies me, thinking I married the right person, transforming from a small accountant into the chairman's wife. Only I know how difficult this process has been. For his career, we have endured a lot of hardship, but no one remembers my hard work and sacrifices. They only think Fong Buiyuan is amazing and I am just lucky. Again. I would give up all future wealth and glory, just to let go of each other in this life. Taking a deep breath, I ignored my aunt's hint and gave him a polite nod. Perhaps because my attitude had changed, different from the previous life. Fong Buiyuan actually became more positive toward me. Out of respect for my aunt, I didn't refuse him outright, and even exchanged polite pleasantries with him. After sending him off, my aunt immediately asked me excitedly, "How about Xiuxiu? This comrade is quite good, isn't he? A top student, tall and handsome. Let me tell you, you need to act fast, or other girls will snatch him up. I went through a lot of trouble to find him for you, even the first meeting slot had to be fought for." My aunt was right. He was definitely a hot commodity in the matchmaking scene, but I shook my head and refused. "Auntie, I don't like him." My words left my aunt stunned, her jaw dropping as she stammered, "No, you don't like such an excellent man." My aunt's eyes widened in disbelief, unable to believe I was actually giving up on what she considered a top-tier catch. I gave a bitter smile and made up an excuse. "He's a top student, why would he suddenly give up life in a big city to come back here? There must be some reason." That was something my aunt had never considered. My question left her momentarily speechless. After a long while, she finally found a reason for him. "Maybe Comrade Xiao Fong wants to return to rebuild his hometown and serve the people." I knew Fong Buiyuan's background was indeed excellent. In the eyes of the elders, he was a hot commodity, and if you hesitated, you'd miss out. So even if there were doubts about him, my aunt wouldn't think too deeply, just urged me to act quickly, but I still shook my head and firmly refused. "I'm not really a good match for him, but he's being unusually enthusiastic toward me. I feel a bit strange and don't really like him. Sorry." Auntie, seeing that I truly didn't like him, Auntie stopped insisting and just sighed. "All right then, I'll look for someone else for you. There will definitely be someone you like, no rush. We'll take our time. Xiu, someone's looking for you waiting right at the factory gate." The security guard shouted from the entrance of the accounting office. Hearing this, I thought it was my parents and hurried to the factory gate. But when I got a clear look at who it was, I was startled. Fong Buiyuan actually came to the canning factory to find me. Since our last meeting, I had made things clear to my aunt, and I hadn't seen him again since. In our era, getting married through blind dates is the most normal thing, and not proceeding if you don't like each other's looks is even more common. As I told my aunt, my conditions are quite good here, but compared to Fong Buiyuan, they are far from impressive. Because of this, in my previous life, I was overjoyed for a long time when Fong Buiyuan was willing to continue seeing me. And many people envied me when he agreed to marry me. I thought that since I rejected him in this life, given his personality, he wouldn't care much and would just continue looking for a girl with better conditions through arranged meetings. Or perhaps remain single for his first love. Watching Fong Buiyuan take the initiative to come to the factory to find me, I frowned, not understanding what he was up to. "Did you come to see me?" I asked hesitantly, wondering if I had done anything wrong during our last meeting. Fong Buiyuan clearly had run over, with sweat still clinging to his face. He was completely different from his usual aloof self. Panting and looking at me with an earnest expression. I noticed that Aunt Hong hasn't contacted me since our last meeting. I thought maybe she had forgotten or something, so I went to ask her. "Aunt Hong said it was you who didn't want to continue seeing me. So I came to ask you why." Based on my 60 years of marriage to him, I know he would never care about such things. His unusual behavior made me start to doubt, could he have also come back reborn, just like me? I hesitated and tentatively asked, "Chairman," but after hearing my words, he looked completely confused, as if he had no idea what chairman meant. Seeing that he really didn't seem to have come back reborn, I secretly breathed a sigh of relief, then quickly made up an excuse to brush him off. "I think your conditions are too good. Much better than mine. If we really got into a relationship, our positions would be unbalanced, and I would feel insecure." This was my genuine feeling in my past life, but every time I expressed it to him, he would think I was overthinking it. Later, when he achieved success and fame. And many women approached him. I told him I felt insecure, but he would only impatiently tell me to improve myself. It wasn't until after I died that I understood the reason for my insecurity. It turns out that whether a man loves you or not is truly obvious. For his first love, he could give her a wedding, a ceremony even at the age of 86. For me, however, he was too stingy to even say I love you. What's laughable is that this question, which troubled me for so long in my past life, is now nothing more than a distant, unreachable void to him. Fang Guiyuan frowned, seemingly a bit dissatisfied with my reason, but still spoke to me patiently. You don't need to worry about such things. Although my circumstances are better than yours, we can learn and grow together. His words made me suppress a snort of laughter. But seeing the dark expression on his face, I immediately wiped the smirk from my face. The gap has always been an unchangeable fact between us. Even if we both improve, I'll still be far behind you. I looked into his eyes, wanting to know the true answer. Do you really like me? Or do you just think I'm suitable for marriage? This was a question that had haunted me in my previous life. But I never got an answer before I died. My question left him speechless. Seeing that, I let out a light laugh and turned to leave. The answer was already self-evident, wasn't it? My aunt was very efficient. Not long after, she introduced me to another young man. Perhaps because I said I didn't like Fang Guiyuan. The boy my aunt found this time was completely different from him. He greeted me politely, waiting for my aunt to introduce us to each other. This boy, like me, only had a high school education. He was a technical backbone at the neighboring machinery factory. Although he couldn't compare to Fang Guiyuan, he was considered a good match in our area. Unlike Fang Guiyuan's aloof and distant demeanor, Fu Heshuan is gentle, refined, and polite in his speech. If no one mentioned it, you truly wouldn't be able to tell he's just a high school student. We had only just started chatting when a voice interrupted us. You rejected me, and now you're meeting with a man who's inferior to me in every way. Fang Guiyuan spoke in a furious and flustered tone, drawing the attention of everyone in the restaurant. His interruption made me quite unhappy, and I said coldly with a stern expression, "We've only met once. And if I don't find you appealing, I don't need to keep looking. I don't think who I meet or get to know has anything to do with you." My words left him speechless, and he vented his anger on Fu Heshuan. Fang Guiyuan scanned Fu Heshuan from head to toe, saying nothing. But his furrowed brow clearly conveyed his displeasure. "I remember you, Yuri the mechanic from the factory. Right, Fu Heshuan, isn't it?" His words were polite and distant, but his expression and gaze told a different story. At the moment, I have no other thoughts about Fu Heshuan, but I am still extremely angry about Fang Guiyuan's attitude toward him. Although I didn't start this, since I brought this person here, I have to take responsibility. Just as I was about to step in front of Fu Heshuan, he moved ahead of me and stood in front of me instead. "Sir." Fu Heshuan looked up at him and said firmly, "Miss Lin didn't take a liking to you, so you come to prevent her from meeting others. That's quite lacking in grace, don't you think?" His words made Fang Guiyuan flush red with embarrassment, especially when he noticed many people in the restaurant pricking up their ears, waiting to see the drama unfold, which only fueled his anger further. However, Fang Guiyuan had always been in school, with a tall and slender build. No match for Fu Heshuan, who had been working in a factory and was much more robust. Even if the two were to actually fight, he truly wouldn't stand a chance against Fu Heshuan. Seeing the situation turning against him, Fang Guiyuan resentfully threw out the remark, "Your taste is really quite poor." Before storming off in a huff, Fang Guiyuan has left, but he left me with the mess, facing Fu Heshuan, who had been humiliated by Fang Guiyuan. I could only smile and apologize. Fang Guiyuan's appearance ruined my mood, and this meeting ended hastily. The meeting with Fu Heshuan had turned out too embarrassingly, and I thought there would be no further between us, so I didn't mention him to my aunt again. Unexpectedly, just as I was telling my aunt that I might meet the next person, Fu Heshuan also came to see me on his own. "I heard from your aunt that you're going to continue with the blind dates. I just wanted to ask, was there something I did wrong that made you feel unsatisfied? Fu Heshwan looked at me seriously. I awkwardly scratched my face. During the last blind date, you were insulted because of me. I thought my impression on you probably wasn't very good. So, before I could finish speaking, Fu Heshwan smiled gently upon hearing my words. It's okay. It's not your fault. Then, he looked up at me again, his eyes sparkling. Since you didn't reject me because you don't like me, can I invite you to watch a movie with me? Unlike Fang Buiyuan's aloofness, Fu Heshwan was more gentle and humble. Perhaps chasing after Fang Buiyuan's shadow in my past life had exhausted me too much. And somehow, I actually agreed to Fu Heshwan's invitation. Receiving a positive reply, Fu Heshwan smiled. All right. Then let's meet at the Yonghan Grand Theater at 7 o'clock tonight. We'll see each other for sure. Fu Heshwan made an appointment with me and walked away with light steps. At 7 o'clock in the evening, I arrived at the theater entrance on time. But to my surprise, Fu Heshwan was already waiting there. Seeing me arrive, he immediately stepped forward and handed me the movie tickets. This film was very famous. Back then, Fang Buiyuan and I were already in a relationship. I had always wanted to see it but never found the time. And by the time it left theaters, I still hadn't watched it. I never expected that in this lifetime I would end up watching it with Fu Heshwan. The film was quite sensational at the time, and its story was unprecedentedly avant-garde for that era. But for someone like me, living 60 years later, it's really nothing. Watching a movie I had always wanted to see but never got around to in my past life. I feel an indescribable emotion, like a toy you desperately wanted as a child but never got, only to obtain it effortlessly as an adult. Although the wish was fulfilled, there was no joy as expected, only a hollow feeling in my heart. Somewhat unpleasant. I think those 60 years of being together had too great an impact on me. Although I hate Fang Buiyuan and don't want to have the slightest connection with him anymore, I can't let go of him so quickly. As if sensing my thoughts, after the movie ended, Fu Heshwan softly asked me, "Don't you like this movie? I noticed you seemed distracted the whole time. If you don't like this genre, I can buy tickets for a different type next time." I shook my head, looking at his gentle manner, feeling a bit guilty. I know he likes me, but I still harbor resentment toward Fang Buiyuan. If I continue with Fu Heshwan while still holding on to him, what difference will I be from my past self and Fang Buiyuan? I'm sorry, but I think it's better if we don't continue to get in touch. After much thought, I decided to be straightforward with Fu Heshwan. Hearing this, Fu Heshwan furrowed his brows and asked me softly, "Why? Do you dislike me?" "No, I don't dislike you, but I don't like you either. If it were about marriage, your qualifications match me perfectly, but I don't want to marry just because we're compatible. That wouldn't be fair to you." My honesty made Fu Heshwan relax his expression. He nodded in understanding, but didn't give up. "As long as you don't dislike me, that's fine. Actually, I really like you. I know you've met someone better than me in terms of conditions, but you clearly turned him down while not rejecting me. I think we can get to know each other better before you make a decision. After all, I feel it would be even more unfair to be excluded just because of such concerns, rather than being incompatible for marriage." His words left me speechless. I couldn't think of a retort, so I fled in defeat. Fang Buiyuan came to see me again. I've never understood what he meant. He clearly still pines for his first love. Yet after I rejected him, he came back again and again, persistently pursuing me. Was it because of pride? "I saw you went to the movies with Fu Heshwan yesterday," Fang Buiyuan said gloomily. I was quite puzzled at the moment, not understanding his intention. "Did you come all the way here just to tell me that? I don't think I need to explain my actions to you, do I?" With that, I turned around and was about to leave. However, Fang Buiyuan grabbed me, holding my wrist tightly to prevent me from leaving. "Lin Xiuxiu." He called my name, his tone suddenly softening. "It's really strange, you rejecting me gives me the feeling of something that was clearly mine slipping away." I turned around and sneered, asking him, "So you mean to say I'm your possession? And you're unhappy because I'm not under your control. Fang Buiyuan didn't panic at these words. Instead, he tightened his grip on my wrist. His eyes filled with confusion. It shouldn't be like this. His conditions are so much worse than mine. Yet you chose him over me. You should be mine. Seeing his somewhat crazed expression, I suddenly felt a sense of relief. Fang Buiyuan has never loved me. Even after 60 years of marriage, he still treats me as his possession. So I managed the household and lived frugally for him. But he remained indifferent. Because in his heart, he took all my efforts for granted. I let out a cold laugh and shook off his hand. Nothing in this world is taken for granted. I don't belong to you either. Aren't you curious why I didn't choose you? I took a deep breath and spoke the words that would hurt him the most. One by one. I know you had a first love in Beijing. And you came back because you were forced to break up with her. You haven't even forgotten your first love. Yet you're already out here meeting other people. I don't want a man who can't make up his mind. First love, it truly was Fang Buiyuan's weakness. A forbidden topic that could never be touched. Hearing me mention her, Fang Buiyuan's gaze immediately sharpened. You're not worthy of mentioning her, he said angrily. Suddenly, his face overlapped with that of his previous life. In my past life, when I accidentally stumbled upon a photo of him with his first love and got jealous. He looked at me with this exact expression and spoke to me in this same tone. For 2 lifetimes now, he has been unable to forget his first love. I've fallen into this trap once before. And I don't want to fall into it again. That's why I chose not to continue with you. I also give you a kind warning. Since you still have your first love in your heart, don't go looking for a good woman to marry. Don't waste her life and ruin your own. I'm not saying this out of resentment because I couldn't have him. This is a lesson I learned in my past life. Shortly after we got married in my previous life, his first love came here to find him. She arrived with courage. But unfortunately, she saw the man she had longed for was already married and had a wife. So she could only leave dejectedly. I hated him for wasting my youth. But I didn't want another girl to replace me and become his sorrowful partner. After saying that, I left without caring about Fang Buiyuan's reaction. My meeting with Fang Buiyuan gave me a lot to think about after I returned. Perhaps Fu Heshuan was right. I am not Fang Buiyuan. And I wouldn't marry him just because it's suitable. Not giving him a chance because of unknown things would be the greatest unfairness to him. So, I contacted and met with him a few more times. What I didn't expect was that after a few dates, I actually got along quite well with Fu Heshuan. Perhaps it was because we shared similar work experiences and educational backgrounds. And Fu Heshuan's personality was relatively gentle. So we unexpectedly turned out to be a good match. The reluctant feelings I had imagined never materialized. Instead, I gradually developed feelings for him over the course of our dates. We naturally ended up together. As for Fang Buiyuan, ever since I gave him a harsh talking to last time, which deeply hurt his feelings, he hasn't shown up in front of me again. First love is truly his Achilles heel. With him absent, no one else came around to act crazy and interfere between me and Fu Heshuan. And our relationship progressed rapidly, combined with the limitations of the times. Our marriage was soon put on the agenda. This news naturally reached Fang Buiyuan's ears through my aunt. But for me now, Fang Buiyuan is just a familiar yet distant name. Immersed in my own happiness, I simply have no time to think about this person. Unlike Fang Buiyuan, Fu Heshuan is a down-to-earth and family-oriented man. His family background is simple, and he even offered to provide the 3 big items for our marriage, giving our family plenty of face. In my previous life, I married Fang Buiyuan, but because he was determined to start a school, our family simply couldn't afford to hold a ceremony. Forget about the 3 big items. Our wedding was just a simple dinner at home with close family and friends. Even when we later had money and I wanted to have a wedding ceremony, he just said it was too much trouble and didn't want to do it again. Until the day I died, we never had a wedding ceremony, and that became a regret from my past life. There were too many regrets from my past life. But Fu Heshuan made up for them one by one for me. As the wedding approached, my aunt also told me a bombshell piece of news. Fang Buiyuan was also getting married. I heard that his first love from Beijing had come looking for him, and after reuniting with her, Fang Guiyuan quickly made the decision to marry her. They decided to get married later than we did, but their wedding date is earlier than ours. So naturally, their preparations aren't as thorough as ours. I was quite surprised to hear this news too. After all, in his previous life, he was already 86 years old and still held a grand wedding to marry his first love. In this life, he's at the peak of his infatuation with his first love. So why is he rushing it? Doesn't he want to give her the best wedding this time around? What's even more incomprehensible to me is that Fang Guiyuan actually had his aunt send me an invitation, asking me to attend their wedding. Is he trying to show off that he got married before me, or is he thanking me for that harsh scolding that finally woke him up? I can't figure it out. But I don't want to go to his wedding. I was already disgusted once in my previous life. I don't want to be disgusted a second time. My aunt actually went as invited, but when she came back, she kept telling me that their wedding was too rushed. And the bride's family didn't even attend, feeling like a hasty, unarranged union. Rumors in this era can be deadly. If my aunt already thinks this way, there's no guarantee the gossip won't spread. But Fang Guiyuan loves his first love so much. He should protect her, right? My wedding with Fu Heshuan arrived as scheduled. Though material resources were scarce in this era, Fu Heshuan still did his best to give me a dignified and warm wedding. Because of his high school education, Fu Heshuan was highly regarded by the factory manager, and after getting married, he was recommended several times to further his studies. Meanwhile, I worked diligently as an accountant at the canned food factory, living a simple and stable life. I heard that Fang Guiyuan, just like in my previous life, had also started a school, serving both as principal and teacher. His first love also strongly supported his decision. She taught during the day and, like me in my past life, collected cardboard and leftover food after class, saving every penny to fund the school. 3 years after marriage, I became pregnant. Unlike my previous life, this time I gave birth to a daughter. Fu Heshuan adored her very much, and he took full responsibility for her care, never delegating it to others. This time, I didn't quit my job. Shortly after giving birth, I returned to work. Because of my diligent attitude, I was promoted after the old accountant retired. Our little family is steadily moving forward step by step. Not rich or famous, but safe and happy. The special period arrived. Besides a few schools still operating, many schools have already suspended classes, including Fang Guiyuan's school. In my previous life, I also went through this experience. As a teacher targeted by the crackdown, Fang Guiyuan was also affected. At that time, I had already given birth to my son and was staying home with the child, thus avoiding the ordeal. But losing Fang Guiyuan, the pillar of our family, I had to work while also returning home to take care of our son. Over the past 10 years, I have become utterly worn out. Fang Guiyuan was even more tormented to the point of wanting to end his life. But I constantly encouraged and supported him, helping him endure these 10 years. After the special period ended, with the resumption of schooling and the wave of college entrance exams, Fang Guiyuan once again became the revered Principal Fang, admired by thousands. As for me, I retreated behind the scenes and was no longer mentioned by anyone. Later on, as the wave of openness surged, he rode the tide and founded an education group. With the rise of the group, he gradually became the chairman Fang that others spoke of. His success and fame were inseparable from his hard work and the development of the times. Yet no one ever acknowledged my contributions. So, in this lifetime, even without me, he should still be able to continue being his chairman Fang. I saw Fang Guiyuan on my way home from work, but his situation was not good. Being despised by others, he was covered in trash that had been thrown at him. Standing on the stage, he saw me in the crowd, and his face immediately fell. I sighed, ultimately unable to bear watching any longer. Although I couldn't offer help in times of need, I could at least refrain from kicking someone when they were down. To my surprise, after learning about Fang Guiyuan's situation, Heshuan actually went to visit him in secret. Upon returning, He told me that Fang Buiyuan was not in a good state. His first love was an intellectual, unable to shoulder heavy burdens or handle tough tasks, and simply couldn't hold up a household. Meanwhile, Fang Buiyuan had to face the storms outside while also maintaining stability at home. Like a candle burning at both ends. A few more years passed. It was said that his first love could no longer bear this kind of life, and decided to cut all ties with Fang Buiyuan, leaving him with their son. Fang Buiyuan eventually survived the difficult period. But unlike in his previous life, in this one he was merely middle-aged, yet already had gray hair, showing no trace of the spirited and ambitious man he once was. He did rebuild the school again in this life, but his energy and vigor were gone, lacking the determination and drive he had in his previous life when founding the group. Day by day passed, and my child grew up. My daughter had a child of her own. And while she and her son-in-law worked hard for their careers, I, having retired at 50, helped them take care of their child. As my grandson gradually grew older, I took him to the school where Fang Buiyuan worked. For me, the events of my past life had become too distant, and I no longer held any love or hatred for Fang Buiyuan. But what I didn't expect was that when he saw me appear with my grandson, he actually became emotional. Have you been doing well? He asked me, his hands trembling. By this point, I was already able to see him as an old acquaintance. I nodded and said, I've been doing quite well. Hechuan is now a senior engineer at a machinery factory. Although we're not extremely wealthy, we live a fulfilling and enjoyable life. Fang Buiyuan seemed to want to say something, but the class bell rang. I quickly sent my grandson inside. What I didn't know was that Fang Buiyuan, standing behind me, watched my back as 2 streams of tears fell. He murmured in a voice no one could hear. How could this happen? I should have been the chairman. How could this happen? I also sighed. It seems that first love was just because I took the blame for her. And time has romanticized the memory. In real life, both people's flaws would be magnified. If they were truly together, they would end up like now, separated by shared hardships. I think, although I didn't see the outcome of their previous lives, their personalities would likely lead them to the same unresolved ending as in this lifetime. Today is the most important day for 86-year-old Fang Buiyuan, as he finally fulfills his dream of marrying his first love, Bai Yuyu, after 60 years apart. In fact, as early as last year after his wife passed away, he had thought about finding Bai Yuyu again. Little did he expect that fate would bring them together once more. Having missed each other for so many years due to twists of fate, Fang Buiyuan didn't hesitate to decide that he must marry her, to make up for not having a wedding back then. He decided to have a grand wedding. What comforted him most was that his son also supported his decision. And so, a grand wedding began. He felt as if he had returned to his 20s. Dressed in a well-fitted suit, riding in a luxury car to marry the woman he loved most. A banner reading 60 years apart, yet destined to reunite as a perfect couple was hung at the entrance of the residential community. This was his son's blessing to him. He thought it would be wonderful to have her by his side for the rest of his life. Yet he had underestimated the impact of those 60 years on both of them. The first love in his memory and the present day Bai Yuyu were virtually unrecognizable as the same person. He wanted to tell her about his experiences over the years, but she had no interest in hearing about his past with Lin Xiuxiu. He talked about business matters, but she found him too vulgar. The 60 years of separation had created an invisible barrier between them. They were now people from 2 different worlds. Bai Yuyu was still, as she had been back then, a fairy untouched by the world, but he was no longer the man who only wrote poetry and prose as he once was. He seemed to have become the commoner she had described. The 2 couldn't connect at all, and he began to miss his late wife. But when they got married, he had thrown away all of Lin Xiuxiu's belongings to show his loyalty, leaving him with not a single thing to remember her by. Over time, Bai Yuyu also began to notice something was off. But what hit him even harder was that, as he aged, he developed Alzheimer's disease. It was an irreversible illness. He could only watch himself become more and more forgetful, more and more unreasonable. At that moment, Bai Yu finally couldn't bear it any longer and filed for divorce. He gave her half of his assets, which angered his son, who gradually stopped visiting him. As he grew older, he became very afraid of loneliness. While he was still clear-minded, he even sent himself to a nursing home. Year after year passed. He had long forgotten who he was, and everyone around him, remembering only one name. Xiu Xiu.